Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America on the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network. Great to have you with us on the program today. Follow and like us on Facebook. Very simple, facebook.com/This Week in America. As mentioned, Jeff Moon is our guest on the program, a graduate of Sacramento State University, been an ordained minister for 12 years. His work with people desiring to start or build their relationship with the Lord motivated him to write The Art of Following God, his first book. Using the principles in The Art of Following God, Jeff has seen the Lord bring peace, healing, and transformation to people's lives. His website is theartoffollowinggod.com. And Jeff Moon joins us on This Week in America. Jeff, welcome to the program. Great to have you with us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Really enjoyed the book, and there's so much in there for everybody. And let's just start with the basics. When did you get the idea to write the book and explain the title? Because I loved the title.
Oh, thanks. The idea came through there were some different readers or writers that I was influenced by a lot when I was growing up. And one of them was Watchman Nee, which hardly anybody has heard of. But he talked about addressing the whole person, that we have a body, a spirit, and a soul. And each of those three things is just as real and has needs that are just as important as each of the others. And I was impacted by that big time. Well, that was when I was younger. Later on over the years, that thought just kind of digested. And over time, it became something to where I found myself pondering so much. I thought, I think I want to be writing this. So I took a couple of years and started writing down different ideas. And it took the form of the art, which means actions, relationships, and thoughts. And it's our body's actions, our spirit's relationships, and our soul's thoughts, which includes our mind feelings, and emotions, that addresses all three parts of our person. So that's where the art came from. And I'd started to write the book in about 2006 or so, got about halfway through, and I hit a roadblock with it. And I started to rewrite some things, and it took me about a year before I could go back and really get it the way I wanted to. And so I really felt like that was actually good because it gave time to digest and solidify some of the ideas in there.
There are so many things that come across in the book, and one, and you alluded to that, is we are all different. We are all unique people. And you look at all of us, and you look at all of us in total as well. That's why the book is so relatable, I feel.
We are different. We're unique. It's not like the bumper sticker that says, remember, you're unique just like everybody else.
Yes.
But we're unique, and we're also special to the Lord. We're ultimately special to him. And sometimes we feel unique as we see our differences, and we can feel isolated or different from people in an isolated way. But he's wired us up with that uniqueness, and he's got a plan for doing it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have.
And as we go through life, and we all struggle as we go through life, it's so simple to remember art, actions, relationships, and thoughts. And we'll talk about each one individually as we go through. You start off the first chapter as the tortoise, the hare, and the rat race, and you talk a lot about God's design. Talk about that, because the problem with the rabbit, and you talk about pride as well as laziness entered into it, but he really didn't follow his design. Talk about God's design and how that's unique for each of us.
Well, the rabbit, ironically, he knew he was born to run. So it would seem that he would just flat out win all the races. And in fact, I'm sure he was used to winning other races and, maybe beat a squirrel here and there. But what happened was he knew that was his design. So he began to take it for granted and figured, well, of course I can beat a tortoise because I know I'm fast. Well, the tortoise didn't have the same mindset. The rabbit got a little arrogant and said, not only do I know I'm fast and can beat this guy, I can even fit a nap in and still beat him. The tortoise, on the other hand, said, well, all I know is what I've got before me is this task. I don't feel very good at it. I might not be a natural like everybody else, especially this hare, this rabbit, but I can sure try. I can go for it. And because of that, the tortoise won the race. And life's rat race is we get caught up into doing maybe even things that we're good at, being real productive, progressive, making ends meet, doing what's got to be done. And we get very consumed with the things that we just figure we have to do. And the whole time, we're getting caught up in a rat race. But we need to remember that that's not all we're designed to do. We're designed for things that are much greater, but those things tend to not be the highest on our radar and getting our attention the most. They can easily be overlooked. But God has designed us with the ability to run and to soar in certain things that He's calling us into. But it does take sensitivity to hear His voice. But the beauty of it is that we can hear His voice. And it just takes one of the themes in the book that you'll see is placing ourselves where we can hear His voice. And as we learn to do that, then some of our natural abilities begin to make more sense to us.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because as you're talking, I'm thinking about this. And so often we have a hard time listening. And that's part of what you talk about in that chapter is to allow yourself to be in that place. And sometimes quiet is okay. You can listen at that point and maybe get a better understanding why it is you're here and what you were expected to accomplish during that period.
Yeah, if you're in a conversation with somebody and they ask you a question, just try taking 5 seconds and not answering and just being silent. And you can feel the discomfort in the room rise because we're not used to the
Yes.
silence. Silence is kind of frowned on or discouraged. It's looked at as awkwardness. However, that listening mode is one of the abilities of a key communicator to function very well at their best is to be a good listener. And I teach couples that in marriage and family counseling all the time, that if you're not hearing the message and you're trying to work things out in your relationship and solve problems or make progress, well, if you're not listening, then what are you trying to accomplish? Or even in the business world, that applies, like Stephen Covey calls it, climbing the wrong ladder. We're trying really hard, but in the wrong direction. Unless we get on the same channel as how the Lord's wired us up and listening to His guidance, so that then we can begin to climb the right ladder, which is His, and do what ultimately is natural to the way that we're built, even if it feels a little bit uncomfortable at times.
Our guest on This Week in America is Jeff Moon. He's the author of the book, The Art of Following God, his first book. The book is available at the website, theartoffollowinggod.com, as well as Amazon.com, and, of course, the other outlets around the country. And you can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on to Jeff's website and get information on the book as well. How difficult is it, and maybe use you as an example, how difficult was it for you to determine what God's design was for you?
That is still a work in progress. And at the same time, what has come to light over the years has been basically that kind of a sensitivity coming to the surface more and more. What I've been realizing is that I greatly desire and have a passion for this area of life, which is that sensitivity to the Lord. Now, to say that I follow that all the time would be a little bit arrogant or presumptuous, but the idea of it is that we're all a work in progress. But are we progressing? Are we choosing to be sensitive? So for me, what's been you asked what's been difficult. I would say self-awareness in certain ways. As the phrase "know thyself," um, there's a lot of truth in the importance of that because I grew up in a Christian home, and I grew up with an assumption that I had certain things together, that I maybe didn't need to pay attention to certain areas as much because hey, I know I'm a good guy over here, I'm doing fine. And ultimately, what it required was the sensitivity to say, well, wait a minute, what direction is the Lord apparently guiding me in? And how can I test that direction against life circumstances and against my own conscience and convictions and what the Bible says to make sense out of it all? And I think that we can accomplish that if we determine to and decide in ourselves, yes, I'm going to find out His direction for me. Doing so might sound like this vague, impossible task that we're trying to accomplish. But in the book, I do discuss how to place ourselves, again, that theme, placing ourselves where we can hear His voice. And we can do that with the people that we're around, the material that we subject ourselves to, the things we study, the truth that we ponder in our minds. And that does begin to flourish and take like a life of its own. It's an exciting process.
The Art of Following God is the name of the book. Art, the actions, relationships, and thoughts. One of the chapters has is subtitled "God has designed us to be His artist," and you say living as an artist is the most natural as well as the most unnatural life we can live. Explain that. It seems to be contradictory, but for some of us, it's like, okay, it does make some sense because we go through that conflict from time to time where we find it easy, and then we find it a little bit more of a struggle to actually live that life.
Yeah, well, originally, when God created the world and there was no sin here yet, things felt very natural for Adam and Eve. It was just a matter of course that He'd come and walk with them daily, and they got to really spend time with Him every day physically, which is not something that we really relate with because we don't get to exactly do that. So, what seems natural is the environment that we're placed in. That's always going to seem natural. There's different environments across the whole world, and yet to each person, those environments, that seems pretty natural. That's the way that life is. Um, However, had we had the chance to be exposed, the more that we're exposed to the Lord and His ways, the more that that seems natural. So when you look around, yeah, it seems as unnatural as like when Peter was in the boat and Jesus asked him to step forward. And to everybody else, that seemed completely unnatural because, in a sense, it was. But to Peter, it made sense because he knew he was going to have to do something maybe not unnatural to where he was at, but a little bit out of the ordinary to take a step of faith and begin to follow Jesus.
You're listening to This Week in America. Jeff Moon is our guest on the program, author of the book, The Art of Following God. And again, art is actions, relationships, and thoughts. It's his first book. The book is available, information at the website, theartoffollowinggod.com. The book is available at Amazon. It's available all across the country. Time going by too quickly in the program, as happens. You use this expression a lot in the book, WYSIWYG, which is what you see is what you get. Talk about the importance of that because it does bring it home on a level we all can understand.
Yeah, I do work in the computer world as well, and so WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get, is a term that applies there, and it in the personal sense it means things are as they are. What you see in a person is what you get in that person. So it's being transparent, or what we in the counseling community might call congruent or integrated. And so hopefully, if you get to know a person, that person, as you get to know them over the years, their character makes sense with the person that you originally got to meet. Now, we can change, and that's fine, but hopefully it's not because of things being hidden or too many fears in the way, that kind of a thing. So, WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get, means that we're reaching a place that we're not living in fear. We're not living under a compulsion to be one thing under one circumstance and a different person that contradicts that in another circumstance, but that it makes sense. And it's because we're congruent. Our body, spirit, and soul are all going in the same direction under His leadership, under the Lord's leadership. And that would make sense, even if it might look a little bit like we were talking about before, unnatural to the world around us.
One of the chapters, You Are Who You Know, The Art of Godly Relationships. How difficult is that? And you talk about the many characteristics of relationships, and I guess I'll ask you about that. What are some of those characteristics, and what do we really need to do as we're forming a relationship to make it so it's pleasing in the eyes of God?
Those are great questions. They really are. And to practice these things takes a lifetime of practicing and massaging
Yeah, I
those
was going to say
relationships.
practice is the appropriate word, I think there. Yeah,
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 I
a
think it
work in
is.
progress.
Now, yeah, as far as what it looks like, so we have something to gauge with. Again, if we can be WYSIWYG with the people in our lives, that's a good sign. Okay, so that we're not having to force ourselves to be something that is out of our character in order to fit in with others, or that we're not forcing ourselves to override what somebody else wants in a relationship in a way that might be manipulative or things like that. So, what we want is a lot of us are kind of starved relationally. That what we long for is the deep connection with people and with God and with our own selves. Uh, but the deep connection is probably going to happen over time. So that's one of the qualities, is how long a relationship has lasted. And as time goes on, if we're going in the direction of building a deeper and deeper relationship, it will become deeper and deeper as time goes on. But longer relationships don't mean they're deeper. It takes the work of getting to know the person and letting the person within us come out to them in such a way that we can work together on the deeper things that really matter in that. And that's what's life-giving about it. We can maybe share our weaknesses with each other and have a person who's there willing to say, you know what, I get it, and that's okay. I'm still close with you. Or I don't totally understand that, but you know what? I'm with you. You've got me. I'm here, and you're in it together. And that does take time. It's not a very common thing.
It's interesting you mentioned that takes time. One of the themes that you talk about in the book, The Art of Following God, is the gift of maturity. And as we get older, we may think of things and perceive things and follow things and interpret things differently than we did at a younger age. Is that natural? And is the gift of maturity something we should just open up and embrace?
It is. It really is. It should be way at the top of the list. Um, the reason being for that is when we when we try to be more mature than we are, sometimes we get shunned and shut down by those around us. So we feel like we shouldn't take that road. When the truth is, that's exactly the road we need to take, but we need to shape it in a direction that is maybe a little more accurate. So, in other words, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to be maybe inaccurate with things that we might say that maybe try to sound mature, but it's okay. And we don't have to be afraid of shaping our lives as time goes on. We don't have to be afraid of being redirected or corrected in life. Those things are not bad. They're an okay part of life. And it's okay to embrace that because who we are is not defined by us making the right choices all the time. It's by being able to adapt and to say, wow, what can I learn from this? How can I genuinely learn something? Not just to avoid pain, but to genuinely move forward and make wiser, more mature choices.
The book is called The Art of Following God. I mentioned that you've actually seen the blessings this book has brought on people in terms of peace, life transformation. Talk a little bit about that, how important this book has been and this concept of actions, relationships, and thoughts in dealing with the people you deal with on a daily basis. And peace is one thing. We're all trying to establish that in our lives. And I guess if we get some of these bigger questions answered and we feel comfortable with who we are, that peace probably will follow.
Yeah, when the three parts of our person, our body, spirit, and soul, or actions, relationships, and thoughts, are going in the same direction, then things fit better. Because when something is confirmed in our spirit as being life giving, or we realize there's truth there, we find something that we delight in, or we find goodness there, then what happens is our soul, our mind and thoughts kind of latch onto that and say, wait, that's a good direction. I desire to go that way, and I'm not going to be afraid of it or shy from it. So we latch onto it and make decisions accordingly. So through that part of our thoughts and soul, then our actions are affected because of that decision making process. Now we've already made the decision that yes, I'm going to submit my actions to those good ways also. So then our whole person together is able to agree and to move forward. So when our body, spirit, and soul are in agreement, just like the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are in agreement in their own person, then and we're submitted to His will along the way, then what we notice is certain kinds of avenues or doors in life open up. I'm not saying prosperity and riches come our way, but I'm saying the transformation that you're speaking of and the peace that those begin to happen because we're congruent and going in the same direction. We're comfortable in our own skin. That we're able to walk in that direction and know that we can have that peace, and it's a genuine peace. It's not contrived or manufactured. It's very real.
And I would assume once you're in that state of peacefulness, that it really opens up other opportunities, maybe in our rat race life, and we're back to where we started talking about rat race, but maybe in the hectic life and feeling this pressure and tension and the basic question, is this all there is? We would miss, but in a state of peacefulness, suddenly we see these other opportunities in life, whether it be a financial opportunity, a relationship opportunity. I think that opens up many more doors, doesn't it?
It does. That's a great point because a lot of times options exist within our lives already right now. that we simply fear risking. And when we understand that risk is okay because our identity is not based on whether I make this financial decision or
Right,
that one,
right.
then we feel the go ahead, the green light to step forward. And that's a very different place in life to be. The Secret is a very popular topic, and it talks about the universe kind of changes how it works. Well, what's really happening with that is it's kind of like another writer, E.M. Bounds, said that prayer moves the arm that moves the universe. So when we pray and our will is lined up with God's will, then our prayers become effective because our desires are like his desires. He says, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. When we delight in him, then the things that we desire match those things that he already wants for us. So do you think he might then be maybe more willing to answer those prayers since they already meet what his will is for us? And they would, he's very willing to answer. And so we see that transformation process happen because our prayers move the arm that moves the universe.
It's an important and powerful book and very easy to understand, just as though you're listening to Jeff talk now and you understand fully what he's talking about. It's just that way when you read the book. The book is called The Art of Following God. His website is theartoffollowinggod.com. The book's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on and get that information. And it does treat people, we go back to where we started and talking about individuals. Everybody is unique, and you come across it. Talking about that during the course of the book, it really was very well done. The art, the actions, relationships, and thoughts. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us on the program. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And I've learned
Mine
something
too.
here,
Thanks a
too.
lot.
Thank you so much. And WYSIWYG, I didn't even know that was a word, but I'm going to have to use that now and sound like a techie out there. At my age,
There you
nobody's
go.
going to believe it. They think I've got somebody writing my material for me if I drop that on anybody. Thank you for joining us. And once again, the website is theartoffollowinggod.com. You're listening to This Week in America on the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network.